Hi, Kate here with another video, and I hope everyone's doing well. If you enjoy my content, please like and subscribe. I'm gonna try to make my videos more often, try to make them shorter as well. It's been about a month since I made my last video. This is on Trump. Just want to get this one out of the way. This is on Trump and some of the stuff going on. I'll try to make this as brief as possible. There's a lot going on, a lot to talk about. Okay, first, the Democrats ran a very weak campaign. They dumped Joe Biden like 100 days before the campaign. Literally, he obviously had dementia and obviously cognitive decline. He just couldn't do it. They replaced him with Kamala Harris, who was also a disaster. She didn't offer any meaningful reason why people should vote for her. She did not offer any. She's something like a $250,000 first-time homebuyer's tax credit, but that's not going to really inspire anybody. If she had like single payer health care or like a public option or free community college, state college tuition, something like that, she'd be president now. She didn't offer any meaningful reason why people should vote for her. Her donors don't want this. She was constrained by that. Exit polls showed the economy was the main issue. Well, turns out actually Trump, I think it was pretty narrow this time. It looked like a landslide. Geographically, more districts went for Trump, but it was really get down to it was pretty narrow, still pretty narrow. Somewhat less people came out for Trump. People voted for him this time was somewhat more diverse, more African American men. Not a lot, but somewhat more than last time. More Hispanic people have voted for Trump. The thing is, Kamala Harris, her base didn't turn out for her. Basically, I think Gaza was the main issue. People were outraged by what's happening in Gaza. U.S. is supporting and carrying out literally a genocide. Biden and Harris were genocide Joe and Holocaust Harris. They were literally guilty of monumental war crimes. And her base didn't come out for her. They didn't vote for Jill Stein or any other third party candidates. Jill Stein got less than 1% of the vote, like last time. They didn't vote for a third party candidate. They just stayed at home. And there, I voted for Jill Stein 2016. I worked for our campaign. It was fun to paid and unpaid. It was fun to do. This time I wrote in Aaron Bushnell, Air Force officer who immolated himself in protest of the genocide. He had a lot of, really moving. His gesture was really moving. I didn't vote for Jill Stein or any third party candidate. Voting is, I don't know, it's not a legitimate system. So anyway, people stayed home. Trump got in. Okay. Trump got in. He's continuing the genocide, of course. Okay. So some things about Trump. A flurry of activities. First couple of weeks, massive amount of activity. Flurry of executive orders, which first attacks against immigrants. Attacks against immigrants. There are like, I believe, 11 million undocumented immigrants in the U.S. And it's complicated. The machinery for going after them was actually started under Bill Clinton, and Obama famously deported more people than Bush before him. People call him the deporter in chief. He lost Hispanic votes because of this. Biden, in his first 2 years, deported more people than Trump did. People were, during the first Trump administration, people were rightfully outraged at the ICE raids, this child separation policy. People were really outraged by this. But don't forget that Biden actually deported more people than Trump did in his first 2 years than Trump did in his 4 years. So I'm pro-immigrant. I support immigrants. I mean, I have more in common with a dirt poor immigrant coming to the U.S. than I do with any of the tech bros, for example. It gets a little more complicated than that. It actually is an immigration crisis. Many towns, border towns, don't have the facilities for taking care of these people, for integrating them. These immigrants are just dumped in towns. They don't have facilities for caring these people, for doing anything with them. It was definitely a political issue over the last few years. This was political theater. Some governor, I forget what state it was, dumped a bunch of immigrants in Martha's Vineyard. This happened during the first Trump administration, I believe. Dumped in Martha's Vineyard. It's playing with people's lives, but show the hypocrisy of liberals. You rich liberals, we don't know what to do. We can't take care of them. Show the hypocrisy of liberals. Main reason immigrants are coming to the U.S., of course, the U.S. is devastating their countries. So there are a couple of incidents during the campaign issues. They're both really weird. Town of Aurora, Colorado, which has a large Venezuelan community. Many people came to the U.S. because the brutal U.S. sanctions and economic warfare against Venezuela. And I talked about this in an earlier video. So Aurora, Colorado is a large Venezuelan community. There's a story that a gang, Train de Agualala, Train of Agualala region in Venezuela. There's a gang. Actually, it's a right-wing gang, but a story that they took over an apartment building, and then another story that they took over a Target parking lot. And this was on right-wing Twitter accounts. This was broadcast a lot, big buzz going around about this. Then there's a story that the Hells Angels were coming to get rid of fight the gang. It was nonsense, but this was going around for a while. It appeared that the owner of the apartment block was actually a slumlord in New York City, and he used this as an excuse not to do repairs. I mean, there are cases where ethnic gangs might prey on people from the same ethnic group. This has happened, yeah. But in this case, it seriously happens that seriously, this guy, the owner of the apartment, was a slumlord who used this as an excuse not to make repairs. He's also an art Zionist. Okay, that was going on. Then there's the town of Springfield, Ohio. Working hard scrabble, working low income working class town. Meatpacking industry is one of the main industries there. Okay, so it has a large Haitian community. Many Haitian people have been there for years and are integrated into the community. It was a newer group of Haitian immigrants, and there are stories that they were pampered, that they were treated very well by the government. I don't know. That there's a right-wing Twitter account which went all everywhere. The guy did interviews with people coming out of the unemployment office or coming out of various offices, and people, black and white people, expressed frustration that these immigrants are treated much better than we are. They get housing subsidies or free groceries. I have no idea how true this is. I have no idea. I have to do tons of research to find out. They'd often do pit. Yeah, that's how the ruling class, standard tactic of the ruling class, they pit immigrants against native-born workers. They've done this for over 150 years. This is a standard technique. So I don't know what was going on, but there was a lot of frustration about this. This was everywhere on social media for a while. There are stories that they were eating cats and dogs. There were no verified instances of this. The chief of police said that we don't have any instances of this. Haitian culture, interesting interview with a Haitian who's hates Trump. He actually said that people do eat cat meat in Haiti. It's considered legitimate. Now, and I'm okay with that. Not a bad thing. In mainstream U.S. culture, people eat pork. And pigs are highly intelligent animals. I'm not a vegetarian. I've tried to be several times. I have respect for people who are. I try not to eat pork anyway. I try to avoid that. I mean, I don't know. I'm dealing with this myself, trying to figure it out. But just the same, we eat pigs, we eat pork meat in mainstream American culture. So who's to say? But having said this, there's no verified instances of eating cats and dogs. It's just nonsense. But this went everywhere. This was everywhere on social media. Trump mentioned it in one of the debates. They're eating cats and dogs. There were jokes and memes about it. Back during the first Trump administration, during the BLM movement, Trump made something about people throwing soup cans at the cops. They were buying soup. They just said it was soup for the family. So two young women were goofing on this. Hey, soup for the family. They were goofing on this, making fun of Trump. I think the same young women had a meme, had to do the same thing about eating cats and dogs. Like, they're eating cats, they're eating dogs. And there was jokes going on social media about this. There's a video of a dog, and Trump got on eating cats and dogs, and the dog dove under the bed covers or something. They were jokes. But I mean, this is kind of racist attacks against Asian people, of course. There is no evidence this actually happened. So, there are all kinds of suspicions. All these immigrants coming in, are they going to take over? Are they being used for voter fraud? I don't know. But anyway, so Trump used all this as ammunition. Now he's going after immigrants. The ICE raids are starting up. I'm not clear if what extent they went on during the Biden administration. They were low key. Now they're very high key, very obvious. They're raiding workplaces. People mention this on Facebook, give warnings for the raiding areas, stay off of buses during this time, and I hate this. I really freaking hate this. They Trump apparently tried to end birthright citizenship. According to the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, after the Civil War, anyone born on the territory of the U.S. is an American, is a U.S. citizen. So they tried to end that. It's being challenged by the courts. I don't know the current situation. It's being challenged by the courts. I'm starting to lose my voice here, but I'll keep going. And also recently, or several weeks ago, Trump deported, I believe, 240 Venezuelans to El Salvador. There's a horrible Bukele, the president of El Salvador, has this horrific prison camp there, deported them there without using due process. Claimed these people were undocumented immigrants who were members of this gang, Trenda El Gualala, and without using due process, just deported them. The courts, he ignored a court order blocking this. And apparently the Trump people claim we didn't get it in time. And there's a joke, yeah, too late. They joked about it, too late. And they deported. And then there's another second court order, which Trump people are just ignoring. And these 240 people, a number of them at least, are legal U.S. residents. One guy was a gay man who's a hairdresser or cosmetologist. Several other people are, have families in the U.S. and they're in a nightmare situation now. They're a horrific nightmare. They're in this private prison in El Salvador, which appears to be really brutal situation. And these people are really in a nightmare, in a total nightmare situation. So it's one thing going on. Trump ended federal recognition of transgender people, and the trans community is in panic right now. Basically, trans people can't use bathrooms in federal buildings. That's relatively minor, but is an issue. But mainly, passports. I despise Hillary Clinton. I totally despise her. But one of the few good things she's done is make it easier for trans people to get F or M, a gender marker changed on their passport. And Trump just abruptly ended this. There's a case in Minneapolis. A trans woman was going to take an international flight, go someplace, and they seized her passport at the airport. You're not going anywhere. Basically, passport has to align with your birth certificate. And some people it's easy. Some people it's not. Depends state by state. Some people can change their birth markers on their birth certificate without any problem. Other states won't allow it. And some trans people are really screwed. They can't change the marker on their driver's license, their passports, and they're kind of screwed. And also, Trump is cracking down or tried to crack down on any hospitals or clinics getting federal aid or any connection or contract with the federal government. And Trump is not ignoring and not going by due process. Okay. Florida executive orders. Trump's appointees. Okay. So the neocons are most part out, I'd say, went after into the security clearance. Trump's uh, into the security clearance of people went against him. Also, the neocons are kind of out. There's still some neocons in his administration, but we place them as the fire-breathing, right-wing paleo-conservatives. So, good case in point. Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, he's a right-wing evangelical Christian dominionationist, basically a fascist. He has tattoos, a Deus Vult tattoo, which is vulgar Latin for God wills that it was modeled during the Crusades. It was popularized among the Christian right, I believe around the 2010s from a video game. I think it was Assassin's Creed, but I'm not sure. But then he has another tattoo, the Teutonic Knights. Not a Maltese cross, but a Teutonic Knights cross. And then he has recently got one about kafir, infidel in Arabic. And he's a kafir. He's an anti-Muslim, anti-Islam. Oh God! So he's an extremist. He's unstable. As Margaret Kimberly of Black Agenda Report said, there's no such thing as a good U.S. Secretary of Defense. No matter who they are, it's going to be a blood-soaked war criminal. Lloyd Austin, retired suave-looking Raytheon executive. He's a war criminal, all by definition. But this is more out in the open. Pam Bondi, Attorney General. She was Attorney General of Florida. Matt Gaetz was originally in line to be for Trump's nominee, but he has a lot of baggage. Also from Florida, was a congressman from Florida. He went against the security state. He brought up a few interesting things, but he has a lot of baggage. He has some sex abuse and all kinds of weird stuff. Apparently, it didn't stick. But there's all kinds. He withdrew his nomination. He resigned from Congress as well. So Pam Bondi was Attorney General, also from Florida, Attorney General of Florida. She protected Epstein. She quashed Epstein investigations. She also protected Trump's cronies in Florida incidents. She's very pro-Zionist. Pete Hegseth, I forgot to mention, super pro-Zionist. Pam Bondi is pro-Zionist. She said she wants to deport people who complain about genocide in Gaza, and they're actually doing it. I'll get to this. So it's pretty awful. Several other people. Okay, there are outliers. outliers. Notably, people ran against the security state to some extent. Tulsi Gabbard, a great example, a congressperson from Hawaii originally. She was a Democrat. She was co-chair of the DNC, Democratic National Committee. She resigned in 2016 to campaign for Bernie Sanders. And she was Bernie's conscience. She defended Bernie when Bernie wouldn't defend himself. She also ran for president in 2020. She's not an anti-imperialist. She was never an anti-imperialist. She's an anti-interventionist to some extent. She brought up stuff about the dirty war in Syria, which you're not supposed to say. I remember Jeffrey Sachs talked about this on CNN. They abruptly cut him off. He'll never be on CNN again. So Tulsi started to say some stuff about the dirty war in Syria or about what the U.S. was doing in Ukraine. This went against the media narrative. They had her listed as a Assad apologist, a Putin apologist. They hated her. Um, she was never an anti-imperialist exactly. To some extent, she was an anti-interventionist. And she ran for president in 2020. She took down, and was Bernie's conscience again. She took down Tulsi Gabbard, not Tulsi. She took down Kamala Harris, her horrific role as California Attorney General. She mentioned that there's a guy on death row a few hours away, I believe, a few hours away from being executed. Kamala refused to release DNA evidence exonerating him. The guy exonerating him, finding the governor of California had to step in to save the guy's life. She made prisoners serve beyond their time, use them basically for slave labor, and all kinds of horrible things. And Tulsi mentions basically destroyed her campaign in the debates. They were setting that up, that little girl was me, she was, she was setting that, but Tulsi destroyed her. And then the Democrats, Hillary Clinton called Tulsi, he's a Russian asset, which, kind of insane. Then anyway, Tulsi Gabbard resigned from the Democratic Party and pivoted to the right. She became a TERF, very anti-transgender. She became super pro-Zionist, ultra mega pro-Zionist. The price of being part of the Trump team is to be very pro-Zionist. And now she's a DNI Director of National Intelligence, head of the CIA and the FBI, or whatever, Director of National Intelligence. Some people had some optimism in her that she'd be a little more realistic. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention she's career military as well. She was in the National Guard. She was a major in the Hawaii National Guard. Or Army National Guard. She was connected to an intelligence outfit, literally a PSYOPs. She was part of a PSYOPs outfit in California, psychological warfare division of the Army, of the military. And as bizarre as it sounds, at one point she mentored Jackson Hinkle. I talked about this in an earlier video. Sounds bizarre. She interviewed him, spent a lot of time with him, went surfing with him. There are documents, there are photos of this going on. I think Tulsi represents one faction, more of a faction of the security state. There's factions. I think we're seeing wars between different factions of the security state and the ruling class. She was one faction which is maybe similar, more pro-Russian, not the hardcore neocons of the Biden people. Similar, more pragmatic. However, if you follow the Signalgate stuff, the real story, they're bombing and killing civilians in Yemen and trying to cover up for it. That's what was really going on. Supposedly a Houthi Ansarallah movement official was killed, leader was killed. Turns out he was visiting his girlfriend. Turns out it's a culture where they don't have girlfriends. It's a totally much more conservative culture. So, and Tulsi helped cover it up. Oh, good job, guys. Good job. Ugh. That's my opinion of her, really plummeted. She supports the bombing of Yemen. She opposed it back under Biden. She opposed it. And now she supports it. Now she flips on every issue. She endorsed Biden. She claimed she was, in the election, she claimed she was contractually obligated to her. I used to sort of like her. I wouldn't support anyone in the Democratic Party, but the Republican Party, but I sort of liked her, but, she's so no. Okay, anyway, Kash Patel, head of the FBI. He was a right-wing activist. He fought against Russiagate nonsense and how the FBI was weaponized against Trump. It clearly was. I don't like Trump. This doesn't mean I support Trump. But clearly the FBI was literally censoring social media on behalf of the Democratic Party. That's what the Twitter files, Matt Taibbi and others, that's what that was all about. And the FBI crossed a lot of lines, pretty egregious. So yeah, I think there's some legitimacy to investigating this. Having said this, the right wing ignores the fact that the FBI has always been politicized. That's what they do. The FBI is the American political police. They came out of the Palmer raids in the 20s and COINTELPRO in the 60s and 70s, which is probably still going on, by the way. It's only a fluke that we found out about it. FBI was implicated in assassinating Martin Luther King. They probably did. They probably assassinated Malcolm X. They so many others were probably involved to some extent. We don't know. I mean, they've always been the American political belief. So the right wing under Trump and later was kind of complaining about how they were going after Trump, but they were going after Trump. But they ignore all the other things going on. The FBI is the American political belief. So anyway, Kash Patel looked like he might clean things up a bit. I don't know. His girlfriend, I forget her name, is close ties with AIPAC and close ties with Israeli lobbying groups. Literally, she's his AIPAC minder. Thomas Massey, Republican congressman who goes against AIPAC and the Zionist lobby, he said every major politician, every major figure has an AIPAC minder. Well, that's Kash Patel's AIPAC minder, and he's super pro-Zionist, like everyone else. He's going after people who are who are anti-genocide. So that's one thing. And then finally, RFK Jr. And I don't want to get into this too much. Son of Bobby Kennedy, his father was assassinated. His uncle, John F. Kennedy, was assassinated. He struggled with addiction. He was kicked out of prep school for smoking weed. He was a heroin addict and then a sex addict. Okay, then apparently he became an environmental lawyer, got some respect for help cleaning up waterways. He got a lot of respect for it. He was arrested in Puerto Rico, in Vieques, Puerto Rico, for protesting what the Navy was doing in Vieques, the bombing range. He was arrested there, actually. And he had some credibility. He had people. He said he had people following him around when he gave speeches on the environment. A group of activists who apparently claimed that vaccines cause autism. And first he dismissed this. Nah. Then he checked into it. They said, yeah, he thought there was a credible connection. Now, this famous Lancet study, which indicated a connection between autism and vaccines, it was debunked. But according to RFK Jr., there are about a dozen other studies that show there is a credible connection. Now, the vaccines are safe and effective, and this is all Russian disinformation. Vaccines do not have any ill effects whatsoever. It's all Russian disinformation. I'm just saying what RFK Jr. says, and I kind of agree with him. If you've seen my other videos, I do think there's grounds for it. Anyway, so he became famous for this, and mainstream calls him a nutcase. I don't think he is. But anyway, he mentioned when he was campaigning, he talked about the dirty war in Syria and U.S. is doing in Ukraine, some of the crap going on. And he was never a leftist. I would kind of see him as I can't think of the name of the guy, but like a 1960s civil libertarian, not a leftist exactly, but a classic mainstream liberal back before liberals became fascist. But then he got weird. He became super pro-Zionist, hanging out with Rabbi Shmuley, ultra Zionist, and said the Palestinians are the most pampered people in the world, stuff like that. He had some leftist support. He had some support for leftists for a while when he left the Democratic Party, running as independent. He had some support from that. He lost that. That plummeted, and he just came off like a nasty figure, horrible guy. He treated women horribly. Whole series of stories about him. Anyway, he's now good. Embarrassing. I don't even know his position. He's, I think, in charge of generally the foods, the health czar. I forget his position exactly. I apologize. It doesn't look too good here, but I forget his exact position. But he's in charge of the USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and the FDA over in charge of it. It looks like he's not there. He's coming out with these weird things. He once said anti-Semitism is the biggest national health crisis in the U.S., which is, I oppose anti-Semitism. That's nonsense. A couple other things. The measles outbreak in Texas was blamed on him. It didn't have any connection, but they're believed to be like humiliation rituals. They're not going to let him actually do anything. He's believed he's staying in his position as long as possible to get information. Catherine Austin Fitz says just get information, find their dirt, and then get out. They're humiliating him. He's not, and I don't really like the guy myself. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I don't like any of these people. I don't. Okay, so here's one guy I thought might be able to do something, but not really. No. So anyway, okay. So I went over the early executive orders, his appointees. Foreign policy is okay. He suspended Trump the 90-day freeze of all U.S. foreign aid except for Israel and Egypt. Now I'm okay with this. It's not, foreign aid isn't what liberals or conservatives say it is. Oh, we're so generous, we're doing. No, we're not. Traditionally, vast majority of U.S. foreign aid goes to three countries. Traditionally, Colombia, Israel, and Egypt. I don't know what it is currently. Half of all foreign aid is to the military of various countries, selling weapons or bolstering right wing juntas in these countries or the military. It's a subsidy to the U.S. military-industrial complex, as if they needed any more subsidies. Also, subsidy to the big agriculture industry often puts local producers out of business. It plays a horrific role. May do some few good things. Whatever good things U.S. foreign aid could do could be done by the UN much better. I'm okay with freezing foreign aid. Apparently, it's been blocked by the courts, as far as I understand. USAID freeze, U.S. Agency for International Development, may do some good things here and there, but they're a regime change operation. Massive global propaganda and regime change operation. Color revolution operation. Apparently 90% of all independent media outlets in Ukraine, not run by the government, were funded by USAID, and they had to close down or massively reduce their operations. Same in China. Somebody said the independent media ecosystem in China is negatively affected. She's the U.S. propaganda system. I'm okay with this. I'm okay with this. Uh, we don't know what's really going on. Some of it may still be going on privately. CIA is still continuing their dirty tricks. That's not ending. Um, uh, and it may be folded into the State Department under Marco Rubio. I forgot to mention Marco Rubio as well. All Democrats voted for him. He had to be confirmed by two-thirds majority in the Senate. All Democrats voted for confirmed, including Bernie Sanders, by the way. Marco Rubio was behind the regime change attempts in Bolivia and Venezuela. He's a gusano, horrific figure. So anyway, this USAID may be folded under the State Department under Marco Rubio, even less accountable. We really don't know. And some things which might be going on, we don't really know. First, could be in just incompetence. They don't know what they're doing, which could be a big part of it. Also, the fact that the right wing believes its own propaganda. They're all foreign aid. Oh, they're all Marxists. They're all leftists, which is nonsense. But they may actually believe their own propaganda is part of it. Also, to some extent in Europe, anyway, the resistance to NATO expansion or tensions with Russia are actually coming from the nationalist right, like to some extent. Viktor Orban in Hungary, the elected president, Kalin Georgescu in Romania. He was disqualified by the Romanian Supreme Court, alleging Russian interference, something like that, which is nonsense. Now, Georgescu is pro-NATO and pro-EU, but he opposed the expansion of a huge NATO base in Romania, which is believed that's why they got rid of him. That's really why they wanted to get rid of him. Now, and it was they very anti-democratic move. Twice they disqualified him. They arrested him. Now he himself is a right-wing nationalist. Some people say he's a fascist. I actually don't know, but he's a right-wing nationalist. And also the looming crackdown on the AfD in Germany. So the Trump people kind of, to some extent, identify with this element. What they think the nationalists, what they might see as the nationalists versus the globalists. They may identify with this element. That's one thing going on to it. They may also have different means of control, like Catherine Austin Fitts called the control grid. Different means of putting chips in people's brains. Musk actually openly talked about this a year ago with the Neuralink. I don't think the technology is nearly advanced to do this, but it could be central bank digital currency. And people say it's a conspiracy theory. Central bankers are openly talking about it. They're experimenting with it right now. It's not. They're actually doing it. Now it could be some like control, like micro control over people's spending. Like, you went to that Palestine solidarity demo last week, or you don't get to buy groceries this week. I mean, that's what's almost down to. I wouldn't exaggerate control of the food supply, some other things. So maybe they're moving towards different means of social control, also more brute force, not soft. They don't have to rely on soft power anymore. It's more a system of total brute force. So there's some of the stuff going on. And it's unclear, a lot of debate about what's going on, what they're doing exactly. Okay, there's that, the tech bros. Now, AI system they're rolling out, and I forget the name of it. I don't have internet right now. There's a storm where I live. The internet is down. But AI system, which you're going to use vast amounts of power. They were thinking of starting up that 3 Mile Island again in Pennsylvania to power this. AI requires a lot of energy. Anyway, there's several figures. Vivek Ramaswamy, he was pushed out pretty early on. H1N1 visa debate. He said he's a Brahmin Indian. Americans are culturally inferior to people from India, to Brahmin. And that was a political disaster. He's kind of been pushed out. Larry Ellison, the PayPal mafia, Larry Ellison, Elon Musk, Larry Ellison, CEO of Oracle, which started out as a CIA database project. Larry Ellison has close ties with the CIA. He owns an island in Hawaii, literally owns Lanahai Island, I believe, owns like 98% of the island. Musk, Peter Thiel, a few other people. Some of these people are pretty scary. Now they're rolling out this big AI project. Part of it, Sam Altman, OpenAI was open source, but then he realized they're making a lot of money out of it, made it proprietary. They rolled out this thing early on. There was egg on their face. Sam Altman rolled out this big thing. They're rolling out this big initiative, and it's going to be all these wonderful things. Larry Ellison actually talked about how they were going to cure cancer. They were going to have tailored mRNA vaccines, AI designed mRNA vaccines individually designed to cure cancer. Now, it's not science. The technology does it. We can't do this yet. Technology doesn't, as far as I know, does it's kind of nonsense. And it hit all the buzzwords, which Trump supporters are most uptight about. mRNA vaccines, massive surveillance. It hit all the buzzwords. It's a public PR disaster for them, for the MAGA crowd. But anyway, China then rolled out this DeepSeek AI system, and it was far better than anything the U.S. has. This AI was supposed to help preserve U.S. hegemony into the future, but China did an in-run, Chinese company did an in-run around it. This DeepSeek on far fewer resources, far fewer chips, NVIDIA chips, small number of chips, and the NASDAQ lost, which part of the stock market, which follows tech stocks, lost $1 trillion in one day. Like, whoa, they got egg on their face from that. They're still continuing, they just ignored it, still continuing it. But they may, Sam Altman said they're going to have to rewrite the social contract. I think they're seriously running into some kind of techno-feudalism. Maybe in a future video, I might discuss this. Some Marxists say, well, it's not really possible. What if we get to a stage where, David Harvey talked about this, Marxist geographer, talked about this. What if the organic composition of capital is so high? Marx talked about how all profit, all value only comes from labor power, our ability to work. What if there's so few people, labor power becomes so small in the production process that capital, like value extraction, no longer makes any sense? The logic of capital falls apart. How would the ruling class remain the ruling class in that situation? There's some debate about this. I might make a future video. Yanis Varoufakis, Judy Dean have talked about this. Some people say it's not possible. Talk about financialization, Lenin, imperialism. Imperialism is the highest stage of capital. Talk about, which is true, is part of it true, but anyway, it's a whole complicated debate. But anyway, I think the tech lords, the broligarchs, some people call them, maybe attempting to move us into a different state. They obviously are. Whether this, I don't know. So anyway, there are also major attacks on the government of Elon Musk. By the way, Elon Musk and Peter Thiel both have Nazi connections. Musk, his grandparents were originally from the U.S. They immigrated to Canada, and his grandfather was the leader of the Canadian technocracy movement. That's a movement which came out of IWW, but it was sort of semi-fascist, ruled by technical experts. They recognized some of the contradictions of capitalism, and they kind of mentioned Marx, but they could be surmounted by a society run by experts, engineers, or technical experts. Kind of proto-fascism in a way. Anyway, his grandfather was the leader of this movement, left it. The technocracy movement came out against Nazi Germany, so he left it. He joined the Canadian Nazi Party. Then after the Second World War, his grandparents immigrated to South Africa because they liked apartheid. His father, Earl Musk, was in the Liberal Party in South Africa. He's a businessman, a politician, still alive. But he left. He was part of a pro-apartheid faction of the Liberal Party, which opposed the one person, one vote. He was sort of a pro-apartheid faction of it. I've seen interviews with him. He seems pretty right-wing himself. Anyway, but he's estranged from his father. His parents had a nasty divorce. Musk's mother with his kids went back to Canada or immigrated to Canada. They got kid in Musk and got into the U.S. He's not a tech guy. He's not an inventor. He's a money guy. He inherited an emerald mine, interest in emerald mine. He's a money guy. He named it after Tesla, the visionary inventor. He's no connection. No, he's not. Anyway, his Mars program is kind of absurd. People say it's not. This is a joke. Really, it's not to colonize Mars. So anyway, he at the I believe it's the CPAC convention. He gave a Nazi salute several times, not just once, several times. And the guy, he's believed to be a ketamine addict. He's kind of an unhinged figure. He may not even be one person. That Catherine Austin Fitz thinks there are actually 30 people playing Musk. I don't know about that, but he supposedly runs 6 companies. Supposedly he's a North American Diablo champion. It's a video game, North American Diablo, and he's posting on Twitter, like Twitter X, like seriously, like 6 times an hour, 24/7. I mean, there's several people, and he travels around the world, makes international appearances, and he's interfering in politics in the UK, in South Africa, and in Scandinavian countries. It's so weird. He's not one person, but he's a figurehead. He's a construct. Elon Musk is a construct. Liberals are trashing Teslas or trashing Tesla dealerships. I'm okay with that. I mean, it's not going to accomplish anything, but a general strike would accomplish a lot more. But so anyway, what is DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, which kind of came out of an initiative under the Obama administration, actually. It's not a government department. It's not a cabinet position. Technically, he's an advisor. He's not even the government. Musk is an advisor. But he's a group of these kids, like literally immature 19-year-olds. One guy who are dismantling the federal government. One guy, he used the nickname Big Balls, and he was actually posting like sexually explicit stuff on Twitter. He was fired, then they rehired him. And there's another guy who was posting racist stuff, and he was fired and rehired too. Literally immature 19-year-olds, a group of people who are around Musk, and they're dismantling the federal government. They're not trained auditors, supposedly efficiency or save money. They're not highly trained auditors. Trump has basically dismantled the Department of Education. Like at least 3,000 employees have been fired. The rest are effectively just not completely. I think legally can't completely abolish it, but he effectively did. Mixed feelings about this. So, they've had the right wing want to destroy public education ever since the Reagan administration. We privatized everything, replace it with charter schools, which are less accountable. The Trump administration is going to roll out a nationwide voucher system, really destroy the public education system. Mixed feelings. American education system sucks. It's horrible, but it's better than nothing. Americans, first, it's largely used in indoctrination, teach obedience, like the bell system. You hear, high school bells, was time to go to the next class. It was based on the factory system to get people used to factory discipline. Whole thing about schools is warehousing kids, get them used to factory discipline. There have been stuff going on, Ivan Illich in the 60s, Deschooling Society, or a bunch of other people. And, a lot of it is based for indoctrination and conformity, but I wouldn't say it's all terrible. I mean, it's better than nothing. And there are some social studies teachers who I personally know use Howard Zinn or bits of Michael Parenti or Chomsky, try to sneak some of this in. And, they're not all bad. I wouldn't say that. And I think, and then one side, and the other side, kids in Europe, and I've taught in schools in Europe and in China, I've taught there, and or at least a couple of years ahead of somebody very far ahead of the American counterparts. American education system, one thing, is flaky. It's used to reinforce indoctrination and conformity, but it's also flaky. So, but I don't agree with the right wing totally dismantling it to corporations. That's going to make it even worse. That's going to be a massive class disparity, massive elitism. That's going to make it even worse. I don't know what I'd replace it with myself. Good, different educational theorists, and I've delved into some of this, but anyway, and they're going after other branches of the federal government, Social Security. That's going to be a bombshell. I mean, there's a huge amount of equity. Wall Street has wanted that pool of capital for decades. They've been salivating after that. That's the third rail of American politics. If they hit that, it's going to be, they're going to have to be careful. But we're entering a different age. The Democrats are not opposing any of this meaningfully. There's some rhetoric. Hakeem Jeffries, who's now the House Minority Leader, he said, we don't have enough votes to oppose this. We just don't have enough votes. Right after that, he went on vacation to Hawaii. Kamala Harris went on vacation to Hawaii after she was defeated. They don't really care. Cory Booker, who's supposedly a progressive congressman, he made this like speech, basically but it didn't mean anything. Long, what's called, you're doing it to block. I have a mental block. You're doing it to block anything, block. And it was just performative. He didn't mention Palestine at all. It didn't go anywhere. The Democrats, whatever they say, is purely performative. They're not opposing anything Trump's doing. People are noticing this. People are noticing this. Okay, a little more about foreign policy. Gaza, well, Trump first got in, he did manage to create a ceasefire, which is a good thing. As Caitlin Johnstone said, though, it doesn't make Trump good. It shows how good Trump is, it shows how bad Biden was. Netanyahu's coalition is very fragile. Yoav Gallant, the defense minister, resigned. I believe Smotrich, the finance minister, was close to resigning. There was a lot of disruption within his cabinet, and if his government collapses, a parliamentary way, if his government collapses, he'll go to jail. Netanyahu and his wife will go to jail probably the rest of their lives. So basically, Trump's story that Trump sent an emissary, I don't remember who this was, who said, no uncertain terms. You're gonna have to negotiate. You're gonna have to have a ceasefire. And Trump said, no, I'm on my. But Netanyahu said, no, I'm on my Shabbat. I can't. No, you're gonna do it. Okay, and he did. And predictably, it didn't last. It didn't last. But Israel was very weak by that. Israel was exhausted by that time, and it was good. I was hoping it would last. It didn't. And it's literally genocide, ethnic cleansing. Then Trump, a little while later, he tried to sabotage his own ceasefire. Then a little while after this, what happened? So a little while after that, Trump then talked about his own program to ethnically cleanse Gaza, relocate the population someplace else. Oh, we're going to make it wonderful. We're going to make like a Riviera on the Mediterranean. It's going to be wonderful. Means moving the population out. I thought this was typical Trump verbal diarrhea. He's known for this, but then holy crap, he's serious. He humiliated King Abdullah of Jordan, who's a Hashemite. He's a hack anyway, but humiliated Abdullah. I thought some people thought that Trump was maybe his own somewhat barbaric way of forcing, Arab countries to step up. So Saudi Arabia then offered reconstruction aid through Egypt and Egypt reconstruction aid of Gaza. And Trump turned that down. No. And he doubled down on this. Trump released a video, AI designed video of like a post-ethnic Gaza is like a new Club Med or something. Really barbaric. And holy crap, he's serious about this. And now the genocide started up again. Carpet bombing is beginning. There are horrific atrocities every day, literally. And they're cut off all food. They're literally starving the population. It's like extermination campaign. We don't know how many people died in Gaza officially. It's like 50,000. But it really has to be at least over 200,000. Some people think maybe around 800,000. By some things Trump said, it might actually be around. We don't know. It's vastly higher than the official numbers. That's ethnic cleansing, genocide. So Trump is just as guilty of genocide as Biden was. Then there's possibility of war with Iran. Trump had gave an ultimatum to Iran May 1st. Ironically, May 1st, they have to accede to some very onerous conditions. Now, or he's going to attack onerous nuclear, and completely end their nuclear program, any sort of nuclear program, or he's going to start bombing them. Now, I don't know what's going to happen. Nobody knows. Iran, under the Obama administration, agreed. They had the JCPOA treaty. Iran agreed to nuclear inspection, nuclear treaties, and it was good. Then Trump abrogated it. And we were 10 minutes away from bombing Iran under Trump's previous administration. Apparently Bolton and Pompeo won. They were salivating about war with Iran for years. So is John McCain, famously. Neocons badly want this. And Trump apparently ordered a halt 10 minutes before the bombing began. You know how catastrophic it would be. We don't know what's going to happen. Greg Stoker, a commentator, military commentator, he says it's performative. It's like Trump's art of the deal, which might be true. I don't want to be overly alarmist. But there's massive U.S. military buildup in naval base Diego Garcia and also Qatar. I don't know what's going to play out. It might be U.S. And if U.S. bombs Iran, Iran could, cut off the Strait of Hormuz, and cut off a large core of the world's oil supply. And goes through there, could take out U.S. carrier groups, U.S. bases. It's going to be a very nasty regional war. Hundreds of thousands, if not tens of millions of people will die. It could crash the global economy. I mean, it could be really. So I don't know what's going to happen. I kind of don't think there'll be a confrontation, but there very well might be. It's pretty unstable. And the Democrats are not doing anything to oppose any of this. Really performative. They're, some perform. They are complaining about it, but they're not meaningfully. They don't want to mobilize people. Underneath all, they have the same donors. There are theories about what's going on. Chris Hedges talks about I don't know what term, the oligarchs versus the, I forget what term he uses, but there are definitely two factions. Might say that he doesn't use the corporatists versus the oligarchs. That's the term he uses. The corporatists, the traditional, more somewhat liberal, imperialist, I say globalist versus one side versus the oligarchs, the tech bros on the other. That's one way of looking at it. Other ways, more on the right. The term globalism is used more on the right, but different factions. There are definitely different factions. Ukraine, forgot to mention Ukraine. Trump's ceasefire proposal was not serious. There were 30-day ceasefire. Russians can't agree to that. Russia needs nothing less than denazification. The Banderite groups, Azov, plays a big role in the Ukrainian military and the Ukrainian state. In that, close those down, demilitarize Ukraine, a government acceptable to Russia, recognition of the four regions plus Crimea as part of Russia. They had an election. They had referendums there. I kind of think it was legitimate, but Donetsk and Lugansk voted 98% to join Russia. Yeah, okay, people saw us in North Korea. But keep in mind, Ukraine threatened 10 years in jail for anyone voting, for one thing. And the people of Donetsk and Lugansk, they fought a bitter war against Ukraine for 7 years. No, at the time, Ukraine was bombing civilian downtown areas of Donetsk, killed several dozen civilians. Why would they want to be part? Why the hell would they want to be part of Ukraine? So I think it was legitimate. I think the elections were legitimate. The referendum that time was legitimate. On 2022, I believe. 2023. I think it was legitimate. But anyway, even if it wasn't, Russia can accept nothing less. Wants to make sure Ukraine can never be used as a forward base for invasion of Russia. Complete denatoification. And Russia can accept nothing less than that. So what Trump is doing, it's fun watching humiliating Biden. Some extent that was by humiliating Zelensky. Some extent that was political theater, yeah. But there are divisions in the ruling class. There are divisions. I think now the Europeans are going to jump in. The U.S. is backing away, probably pivoting towards China. And Europeans are now, the division of labor kind of jumping in. Like Starmer says he wants to send 10,000 British troops to Ukraine, which is odd because Britain doesn't have an army, doesn't have a military. Like the British army could fit in Wimbledon, people say. They have a very small. France has a more sizable military, but they want to get more involved, less of a direct NATO war than a European war, get more involved in NATO while the U.S. pivot is against China. It looks like that's what's happening. I don't really know. So there are factions, and Trump's tariffs, too, could be catastrophic. I think it's complicated, but tariffs are not going to reindustrialize America. This process, which has gone on over decades, and Trump is not dealing with externalities. Like Michael Hudson talked about the American system in the 19th century, what's called the American system, a system of economic development, usually pushed by the Whig Party. There were canal buildings, and then railroad building later 19th century to help industry. Now, Trump is not doing anything like that. Trump could be a national healthcare system, better education system, could be funding infrastructure. Trump isn't doing anything like that. What Trump is doing is real neoliberalism on steroids. It's a more extreme type of neoliberalism, and I may talk about this in another video. So I hope I covered all the bases. It's things are massively changing. The Democrats are not fighting it at all. They're deliberately not fighting it. And we need to build some working class alternative, some fight back. The Democrats, people pretty much know the Democrats aren't going to do crap. Anyway, I hope you enjoy my video. And have a good day. And please like and subscribe if you enjoy this. Thank you.